Hi everyone, I'm Curtis Judd, and this is Time and Light, the online show about the craft of photography. In this episode, we're going to do a little light painting, and much more by hands-on than last time when we talked. Light painting is usually something where you take an exposure, a long exposure, and in this case, we're probably going to do something in the 15 to 20 second range, typically in relatively low lighting conditions, and then you use another light source to paint in the areas with light that you want to illuminate. And so in this case, we're going to take some photographs here. We've got some books with sort of a foil finish, so they have kind of a cool look to them, and we're going to go for a low-key look with just a little bit of light in to give it a really moody kind of feel. A couple of things in terms of equipment that you need. Fortunately, you don't need a whole lot. You do need to have your camera. Your camera needs to be stabilized on a tripod, so for you non-tripod shooters, if you want to get into this or give it a try, you either need to borrow someone's tripod or you need to invest. And I'm actually a big advocate of tripods. I think, I started largely as a landscape photographer, and it's absolutely critical there, but I think that it has a lot of utility in a lot of other cases as well. So you've got to have a camera. You either need to have a remote shutter release, or you need to be able to set your camera into a self-timer mode so that you can, again, isolate some of the shake. Because when you're doing a really, really long exposure like this, you definitely got to have things stable, and pressing that shutter release button, even when it's on a tripod, can still introduce some camera shake. In this case, we're going to use this is a mini mag light, and I've added my own custom snoot. In this particular case, it's just a piece of black construction paper, and what I did is I took a strip of it, kind of wound it up. What I did is I tried to make the opening on the side where the light's going to be coming out a little bit smaller, and then wider at this end so I could fit it over the head of the flashlight there, and then just use a rubber band to secure it. So I can, I can turn it on and control it, and this sort of focuses the beam of light, because what we're going to do again, and part of the reason it's called light painting is you're going to see we're going to move the light a little bit to get a really kind of, again, nice, soft, and sort of moody feel. So let's jump in, and the first thing I'm going to do here is I got my camera set up. I'm going to, just out of the box, or kind of at a starting point, I'm going to set it to f8, and I put it in manual mode, and then I switch the shutter speed to 15 seconds. If you want to give yourself a little bit more time, you can do that. So again, here in our case, f8, 15 seconds, and I've got my camera set to self-timer mode. So the first thing I want to do is actually turn out all the lights and take an exposure without using even the flashlight. I just want to make sure that everything is dark or really, really close to it. And what we're doing in essence here is measuring our ambient light, because that's going to be kind of the foundation of the exposure here. So let's do that. Let's turn out the lights and take our first exposure and see how we go. Another tip, you can't focus in the dark. So you want to take care of your focusing while it's still light, and then flip your camera into manual mode. Manual focus mode, that is. So here go the lights, and we'll take our first exposure. All right, first exposure going. You can see in my case, the camera actually flashes to let you know, hey, you get a few seconds to get in place if you're doing the family photo type thing. And here we go. 1,000, 2, 1,000, so on and so forth. Again, the whole idea in this particular case is we're trying to get a sense for what the ambient light is providing. And in this case, I've got a light on in the other room. I don't have any lights on in this room. Just want to make sure that we're in the ballpark of where we want to be. Okay, exposure finished. I'll turn the lights back on. Great. Here we are. Okay, let's check out that exposure and see what we got. In our particular case, I can see I am getting just a touch of light off of the foil on the bindings of the books. That's okay. I'm willing to work with that. It is a very, very low key, right in the neighborhood where I want it. So that's good there. So let's go ahead and try a little light painting now. Keep in mind, you're going to have to experiment. So you're going to have to do a lot of exposures, because you'll kind of develop your technique as you go along. The first one will go, and we're just going to come into this area here and try and expose the edge of the books just for a couple of seconds, and then I'm going to pull the light away and let it finish its exposure to get all the ambient that it's going to get as well. Let's see how that one turns out. So here go the lights. And in this case, this particular flashlight, you have to kind of twist the head of it to turn it on. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it on beforehand. You can see here I am. And here we go. We'll go ahead and start our exposure. Okay, we're getting the flashing light indicating that it's getting ready to shoot. Here it goes. Start. Okay, 1/1000. I'm just going to come in here again, pretty close, and just run the light by really kind of quickly. I just kind of want to get it in that area and then back away. Okay, and we'll let it finish its exposure here. And we'll see how that one turns out. Okay, there we go. Back on with the lights. All right, let's see what we got here. Okay, looks like we're a little hot here. You can see, I don't know if you can see, actually it's flashing quite a bit. It looks like we burned out some of the highlights. So we're gonna wanna take it a little bit easier with that light. Let's give it another shot. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this light on first. This mini mag light, actually, they're just selling these now. They actually have two different power settings, which is kind of nice. So there's the really, really bright. Don't want to use that. Again, we're trying to control it a little bit. And there's this second setting, which is a little less bright. It also has a couple of other settings, which aren't really useful for us necessarily as photographers. They have an SOS setting. So it does the Morse code SOS signal, and they have one that's just a strobe where it keeps flashing and flashing. So let's do another one here. I'm gonna go ahead and just double check my focus, make sure we're good. We are good. Setting it back into manual focus mode, turning out the light. Okay, I've got this light on. We're gonna go ahead and start the exposure. This time we're gonna do it really fast. We got a little bit too much light last time. Okay, I did a couple swipes there. Really quickly, let's see how this one turns out. As soon as our shutter goes back off, we'll turn the light back on. There we are. Okay, let's check that out and see what we got. You know, that one's a little closer. Actually, that's something we can definitely work with. Again, very moody look. And here's a view of it up close, a little closer here, just so you can get a sense for what that looks like. So this is something you can do a lot of experimenting with. In our particular case, we did something up close. You can also do much larger items. In fact, if you go to David Black's website, just have a look for David Black, and you'll find that he does it on very large scale. So he had a couple where he was lighting up the sides of barns and things of that nature. And then he had one, a kind of an extreme example, where he's actually lighting a mesa out in the desert. He was actually a mile away with these massive light sources, and did some really interesting work. So play around with it. It doesn't require a lot of equipment, and it's a lot of fun. You can get really cool results. Talk to you again soon.